Okay, welcome everyone. This is our third annual session. I just wanted to say thank you to Justin Lang from Public Health Canada for gathering us all together for this third installment. My name is Dr. Shonda Morrison. I'm coming to you from University Ljubljana, Slovenia, and I'm here representing the SlowFit and FitBack team. It's just wonderful to see everyone and have all of this really informative work from all over the world. And so in the interest of time, I wanted to make sure that we stick to the schedule quite diligently. When we were making these plans, Justin and I put in some extra time at the end for a brainstorming session on a whiteboard here in the Zoom files. So I'm looking forward to that. We did not discuss questions, but I think it might be best, since it's such a packed schedule, that we save some questions either in the chat or we can add it in the brainstorming session later. So the purpose of our gathering this time, we decided to base it around a theme of physical fitness and children and fitness surveillance and monitoring and measuring across the world. We really wanted to consolidate the state of the art and where we are at with that topic. And so it is my real pleasure to introduce Dr. Kliegl from Germany. He is going to speak to us on the post-pandemic COVID-19 recovery of physical fitness in third grade primary school students. And we'll move on to some other interesting talks for the rest of the morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are joining us now. So I'll present the professor now, and I think we can get started 1 or 2 minutes early, just in case there are some questions or some additional time. Dr. Kliegl.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very excited about this. I will talk about two projects from German states, one from Brandenburg and the other from Thuringia. And both projects use the emoticon test. Data are collected by the sports teachers every fall. The items, I think, are pretty much self-explanatory, perhaps with the exception of the star run. And here the children run a complex pattern of forward and backward and sideward movements as fast as possible. Note that we converted the star run and the 20-meter sprint to speed, and therefore for all tasks, larger values reflect higher fitness. I will report results from about 123,000 Brandenburg children from the 2016 to 2024 cohorts, and they were all between 8 and 9 years old. And my results from Thuringia are from a similarly selected set of around 54,000 children. And this is one of our key results. We observed parallel development for boys and girls in all tasks. None of the sex by age interactions is significant, despite the huge samples we have. So we think in this case, absence of evidence is evidence of absence, because we also closely replicate the pattern across the two states. In Brandenburg, we are in a good position to check how social structure has moderated COVID effects, because the belt around Berlin is socioeconomically much better off than regions far from Berlin. And we also have an official school social index capturing these socioeconomic differences very well. It is a composite of socioeconomic status, the percentage of children with non-native language, and the percentage of children with special educational needs. And the 4 levels are basically quartiles. With respect to the COVID pandemic, of course, the challenge is to assess its effect against secular trends. And we used a regression discontinuity design to test this. We specified the first day of school for the 2021 cohort as the critical date. This is the vertical line in the figure, and estimate 2 COVID effects. The difference between the 2 trends at the critical date and the change in trends between them, the change between the trends. The graph shows actually our results for the 6-minute run with 95% confidence intervals. Obviously, there is strong evidence for both effects. But unfortunately, at least so far, there is no evidence for a rebound, rather the opposite. So, okay, let's break this overall trend down by school social status. In endurance across all years, children in high SES regions have run further. That's the top lines here, basically. Actually, before COVID, this difference still increased. However, after the COVID then affected the high SES schools much more. You can see the decline here much steeper than in the others. So the simple conclusion is that children living in well-to-do regions, for example, around Berlin, had more to lose when COVID-related restrictions were imposed. I was actually quite surprised by this result. Unfortunately, it looks like there are actually also delayed negative effects for the low SES schools as well. A very similar pattern of results is found for the 20-meter sprint, and I just skipped that one. And the effect of school status was even more pronounced for the star run. Basically, in the fall of 2020, the difference between high and low SES schools was completely eliminated. And now, of course, we see that there is evidence for faster recovery for children in high SES schools. If you want, the old order gets re-established. We did not observe COVID pandemic-related effects for standing long jump. In Thuringia, we found the negative effect of endurance only for boys. We replicated very nicely the result for the coordination, that's the star run. And we did not find the effect on speed, and here presumably because of the strong negative trend, pre-pandemic trend. However, different from Brandenburg, here we actually find an effect, the COVID effect also on the standing long jump. So I should also say that in 2024, that's not in the figure here, there was also, like in Brandenburg, a strong rebound for coordination. We also cooperated with Tanja Eberhardt and Claudia Niesner on a project using tasks from the German motor test. And here we observed COVID pandemic effects for 6 items: 6-minute run, jumping sideways, sit-ups, push-ups, 20-meter sprint, and standing long jump. And the last result again replicates the one we had in Thuringia and the one we didn't find for Brandenburg. So let me summarize. There were small but reliable COVID pandemic effects in running tasks in 3 German federal states. There is also evidence for standing long jump in Thüringen and Baden-Württemberg. And in Baden-Württemberg, we also saw the effects for other German tasks of the German motor test. In Brandenburg, negative effects on running were especially large in high SES school. And we think this underlines the relevance of the social structural environment for children's fitness. I should also mention here that the usual Matthew effect for children with educational risks is therefore children with educational risks. They were more affected by COVID. And so far, basically, we only see the rebound effect for coordination, mostly for high SES schools, and no evidence for rebounds of endurance and speed. And this may suggest some serious long-term consequences of the COVID pandemic. Now, our project has been running for a long time, so we, of course, we could not adopt a YFit battery, but I still would like really to cooperate with this group very much. And here are just a few thoughts, maybe also to follow up later. One thing is that the data and scripts are available, of our results are available in Open Science Foundation, so this is an option for cooperation. We have the standing long jump, therefore we have one link to the YFit battery, and I think it should really be possible to map like the 6-minute run to the shuttle run and maybe do some other stuff like that. I have one other thing, that's something I'm currently working on very much, is that the YFit uses the BMI. Now, I think that basically the BMI comes from obesity research, and in the context of physical fitness research, I actually find that the height to mass ratio may be better. And actually, because if you think of the height to mass ratio as lightness, then you actually end up with a nice linear model of height and light and height times light. And we use that, and so far we have no evidence of loss of information. So yeah, visit us at our website. We are doing our best to keep this project alive and hope that the partners will all stay involved and new ones will join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. You've been on time perfectly, and I think you bring up some great points about which tests we should be targeting in the research, especially for harmonization and international collaboration. And I'm looking forward to Dr. Ortega's talk later today with the YFit battery, where maybe he can expand on the questions that you raised. We do have time for one question if someone wanted to type quickly in the chat. If we wanted to. Otherwise, I would ask Dr. Drenowatz from Austria if they could queue up their information as well.
Then I stop sharing, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, so Dr. Drenowatz is here. And we'll just wait for maybe 30 seconds if there's anything on the chat that pops up. Okay, I don't see anything coming up, so I suppose we can continue with our next talk, the lasting effects of COVID-19. Is there a rebound effect that are observed in declines in physical fitness in the years post-COVID-19 lockdowns? Dr. Drenowatz, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about some of the research we have been doing in Upper Austria, which follows up really nicely on what we just saw in German regions. So I'll be talking about what happened in Upper Austria, so just a little bit south in Europe, and also look at elementary school children. So this is a project where we went to school actually to measure. So it's not the gym teachers doing the measurements. We had an external team for a couple of years to go into schools and do several fitness assessments. Unfortunately, we discontinued in 24, so I can only show you data up until that point. So we were all familiar, basically, when it comes to COVID, that there was significant decline, at least acutely, in physical activity in children and adolescents, which was partly due to policies that were implemented to reduce the spread of the virus, stay-at-home orders, closures of schools, closures of fitness clubs, and opportunities to engage in physical activity. So that's not really anything new, and I think that was pretty much more or less severely observed across the globe, or at least in the well-developed countries. And along with those changes that were implemented, we saw some acute effects that in children particularly. So this is data from Austrian children, not from the VFit BISTU data, so that translates into how fit are you, rather a different data set in Southern Austria to just show the general trend that we acutely observed with the COVID restrictions once they were implemented. So from 2019 to 2020. So you see on the left-hand side, the 6-minute run score, so cardiorespiratory endurance, declined. And again, there is no sex difference, basically. So everybody group-wise declined there. And also, it didn't really make a difference what your fitness level was to begin with. So even those with a better fitness level did display a similar decline as those with a worse fitness level, or those engaging in external club sports displayed similar declines as those who were not engaging in any out-of-school physical activities. And on the right-hand side, basically, you see the BMI change, which also is not too surprisingly new. So basically, we did see an increase in BMI acutely related to COVID. I'll just bring my pointer in to make it maybe a little bit easier to follow. So now let me talk about that program. VFit BISTU is a German term. It basically just is the question, how fit are you? And it is a fitness evaluation that we have performed in Upper Austrian elementary schools. So basically 6 to 11 years of age children were engaged in that. It started in the school year 2016-17, and then we had to interrupt it during the pandemic years and continued for 3 additional years. So actually, it ended up quite nicely. We have 3 years prior to the pandemic, and then following up 3 years after that. Sample size roughly 6,000. And those are only the new tested. So repeated measurements in this case were excluded, that I only have always the initial preliminary test from each child, because if we went back to schools for following years, some kids had repeated measurements, but in this case, we excluded that just for clarity. So here is only always the initial tests of the children. You see the descriptives here of height and weight, and basically, if you just look at the weight or the BMI values, we could confirm that we see an acute increase in BMI, and then also the acute increase in the prevalence of overweight and obesity. But that actually declined relatively quickly again, went back to the pre-pandemic level. Maybe it's slightly elevated, but overall, at least from a weight perspective, there is some promise that we achieved a slight rebound there, and that occurred relatively quickly. Now, if we look at the fitness components, just one thing here. So I've listed all those 8 test items. So it's, again, unfortunately, everybody uses a little bit different tests. That project was implemented by the government, basically by the Sportland Upper Austria. So there was no input from us which tests they could run. So we have the counter movement jump, which has been consistent. But then for absolute strength, we used the medicine ball push, so a 1 kilogram ball that needed to be pushed. Tapping basically on a force plate for 6 seconds, contacts measured, as well as the 10-meter sprint for speed. An agility run, not quite the star run. Ours is called hurdles boomerang run. So you have a forward roll, some directional changes, and hopping over hurdles and crawl under them. So kind of to assess overall agility. Throw and catch for manipulative skill, a flexibility test, and then the 6-minute run. Also, we use for cardiorespiratory endurance rather than the sometimes more commonly used shuttle run. And then if we look what happened over those measurement years, basically, and I separated those by age here, because again, sex-wise, there wasn't really any difference in the progression overall, besides the differences we just see between male and females overall. And looking at both the endurance, cardiorespiratory endurance, and also the agility run, if we just look pre-post comparison, we do see a decline. So there has been a decline over time in the performance with cardiorespiratory endurance as well as with the agility run. And that has been more pronounced actually in the older children compared to the younger ones. But if we look more closely, actually that decline happened before COVID, more so than within the pandemic, actually, where the pandemic just continued to decrease similarly as we already observed beforehand. And then basically since then it's stabilized, especially for respiratory levels at a lower level. So we don't see a rebound, but also an acute effect of COVID-19 was not as apparent as we may have maybe expected just by pre-post comparison, because that decline already started early and has been going on for quite some time, unfortunately. And with the agility runs, relatively similar results here, where we also see gradual decline. I did not convert that to pace. So here actually higher values mean worse performance because it's the time needed to complete that run. So again, decline prior to COVID that continued throughout the pandemic and then stabilized basically at worst level pretty much. Now, if we look some of the other developments, counter movement jump, there's not really too much there, more so in the older children actually, where we see that there is a decline in performance. But again, it actually started the years leading up to the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's not that it just happened with COVID. Unfortunately, we have seen that for several years that physical fitness levels tend to come down. With the younger children, there's at least a rebound to the pre-pandemic levels that we see here if they decline acutely. So those effects were returned relatively quickly, but the overall trend has not been reversed basically, so that in general we still see lower levels, particularly as children get older. Now here are the results from the tapping and then the manipulative test, so the throw and catch test. And the tapping results are quite interesting because actually where we tend to see an increase during the pandemic years, so maybe that had to do with people doing more HIIT style activities or high intensity stuff at home. with the children. And then also the post-pandemic years, actually, we saw an increase in speed-related tests we see with the tapping test, which again led, if we compare just that to the 2016-17 levels, then to an increase in tapping performance in the younger children. And in the older children, overall, we get back to 2016-17 levels because of that early drop we saw here during those first measurements here, but then it just comes back. With throw and catch, the same thing, we see a slight decline actually already pre-COVID, and then after COVID, relatively stable levels as well. Younger children tend to be more resilient and recover more quickly than the older children. So the older children were still a little bit lower than the pre-pandemic years, especially early on, if we compare it to value 2016, 2017. And then finally, we have the flexibility and the absolute strength test. So flexibility is kind of the test that most clearly shows what we were expecting with the COVID restrictions. So we see a relatively strong decline in flexibility, but then also within the first 1 year, basically, or 2 years, then a rebound to pre-pandemic levels. So again, that relatively short-term impact that all of us experienced and definitely had a significant effect on our behavior. But if we look at fitness, it appears that the short-term impact may actually have been overcome relatively quickly. However, we still have the problem with the long-term trend that we observe with the decline in physical fitness levels in use, basically. And if you look closely at the medicine ball push, it's actually quite interesting, because here we saw an increase in performance levels from the last year pre-pandemic to the first year post-pandemic. And that may relate to actually the weight gain that children experience. So if I have a higher body weight, it actually will result then in a better absolute strength. So if I don't need to move my own body, like on push-ups, with the medicine ball push, where every child pushes the same weight, then actually a heavier child may have an advantage. And that could explain that increase we see basically here in absolute strength. But then again, as the weight declined, which is a good thing, back to more favorable levels, then also so did the medicine ball performance, basically. Now, overall, what we have seen here with this data is that the rebound, actually, where we saw significant impact of the COVID pandemic directly, occurred relatively quickly, so within 1 to 2 years. So there appear to be limited long-term effects that may be directly attributed to COVID, but I didn't look at the socioeconomic differences here. So that may be something where things can be a little bit different, as Dr. Kliegl just mentioned. But overall, as you see here, or as I've quickly summarized, if there was a decline, it came back, or the decline already started prior to COVID-19 levels. And just to emphasize that point here, to drive that home, that's long-term data from Austrian adolescents that started relatively early and ended in 2010 then, where we see actually in the 1990s, there was a significant decline, then it stayed relatively low. Unfortunately, I don't have the 2010 to 2020 data available, but that's the key problem. So we were not able to reverse those drops in physical fitness that happened a couple of decades ago. And now we're just at low levels, and COVID definitely didn't help, but I also don't think it made it significantly worse on that end. So thank you very much, and I hope I didn't take up too much time.
Thank you very much for the fascinating insights. And yeah, it would be really interesting to see this graph continuing on to present day for sure. We're going to ask you to stop the screen share and move on directly to Dr. Guy's presentation. So I will just cue that up. Is everything looking all right here?
Yeah, it's everything okay.
Okay, so I'll introduce Dr. Gaia. She's going to speak on the Permanent Observatory on the growth and development of Brazil, children and adolescents, and this is the PRO-ESP Brazil study. Please go ahead.
Okay, so good morning. Here in Brazil is good morning for everyone.
Sorry.
My name is Star.
Try that again. It was not working. Let me try a different version. Okay, this is the first one.
Yeah.
Let's move on to this one then. Okay.
Okay, please could put on the first one. I think this is the third one, please, Professor.
This is the second slide in your presentation.
Yeah, the first one, please, if you could put. Yeah, thank you so much. So, my name is Annelise Gaia. I'm from Federal University of Pelotas, Brazil, and I'm very happy to present our study, Non-PROESP Sport Brasil. So this project has a personal history. It was created, please, could come back?
Okay.
Sorry. It was created in 1996 by my father, then a professor at Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil. My father believed that physical education is essential for people development. After his passing, I continue his work, honoring his memory and keeping his purpose alive. Please. So what is the Sport Project Brazil? The permanent observatory was designed to provide an objective interpretation of body growth patterns, nutritional profiles, and physical fitness level. Our battery is divided in 3 parts. The first one, please, includes the measurements of body growth with weight, height, and arm span. The second one includes health fitness tests with body mass index, 6-minute walk and run tests, sit and reach, and 1-minute sit-ups. And the last one, physical fitness tests for sport performance that include medicine ball throw for upper limb strength, horizontal jump for lower limb strength, squat tests for agility, 20-meter sprint for speed, and the 6-minute test again for cardiorespiratory fitness. Our battery, our battery is similar to others worldwide, but it has distinctive features. The adaptation of the 6-minute test and also the adaptation of the sit and reach test, and our clear division between health and performance. It was designed to be simple, low cost, and accessible for teachers around our country, around Brazil. For example, we chose not to include the hand grip dynamometer because it's higher investment. However, it's important to highlight that all tests went through reliability and validity analysis, supported by master's and doctoral research. Please. So, one of our main contributions here in Brazil was defining cutoff points through association studies. For example, we linked the 6 minutes and the BMI with high blood pressures and high cholesterol levels, applying ROC curves analysis. We used, please, the same approach with flexibility and abdominal strength, considering lower back pain as a risk factor. More recently, we expanded this model, connecting speed, agility, and muscular strength with body mass assessment. This allows us to propose cutoff points for osteopenia and osteoporosis, particularly from the speed and upper limb strength tests. All analyses were stratified by age and gender. Another important part of PROESP Brazil is the evaluation of sports performance. We developed norms based on more than 12,000 Brazilian athletes, and we proposed equations to detect motor talent in different sports, using multivariate analysis for great accuracy. Nowadays, one of our greatest contributions was the development of growth curves for height, weight, and BMI, based on over 95,000 Brazilian youth aged 6 to 17. When compared with World Health Organization's references, our curves showed significant differences. They reflect the unique characteristics of Brazilian populations, include regional and indigenous groups. These curves are a valuable resource for professionals in medicine, nutrition, public health, and physical education. Currently, we are working on the revalidation of protocols, updating values, and incorporate new technologies. Please. In a recent study with the purpose of understand the PROESP application around our country, we have main goals. One, identify teachers and researchers' perceptions of advantages and challenges. Gather suggestions for improvement from practical experience. Build a national consensus of instrument and usability. Develop a digital application for tests and analysis. Reformulate our database and integrating it into the app. And finally, synchronize data with DataSUS and ConnectSUS that both are the app of our public health system here in Brazil. So as a conclusion, PROESP is more than a set of physical tests. It's a national tool, scientifically validated and easy to apply, that help us understand the growth, health, and performance of Brazilian children and adolescents. It reflects our reality, values accessibility, and continues to evolve to support education, health, and sports. Please. So I would like to say thank you for my research team, and please, for my colleagues around the world and around of my country. And I'd like to say thank you very much for your attention, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gaia. I think in the interest of time, we will move on, but there is one question in the chat for Dr. Drenovac. We do have 1 minute if he would like to reply. It says, are you able to adjust your trends in fitness for trends in body size? So we're going back a little bit to Dr. Drenovac just while our next speaker gets queued up.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good point. And the data I showed you is just the preliminary, pretty raw data. So I'm still working on the manuscript actually at this time. So yeah, I definitely can look into that and see whether obviously the data is there. So we should be able to, in one way or another, adjust for the trends in BMI and looking at the fitness. Yeah, that should be a possibility. Thanks for pointing it out.
Thank you. Let's move on to our next speaker. We're looking to Antonio Martinko. He's coming to us from Croatia, and he's going to speak to us on the comparative analysis of school policies on physical fitness disparities in children of varying weight status using the SlowFit database.
Hi, hello.
Go ahead.
Greetings from Croatia. I just want to say thank you to Shonda for the introduction. And also, I would like to start by saying thanks to the wider team that helped with this research. This isn't published yet and is a part of my PhD project. So I'm doing this as a part of my PhD project, which is in a Scandinavian way. It's a three-parter, I would say. So thanks to the colleagues from University of Zagreb, Faculty of Kinesiology, and also from the University of Ljubljana, Faculty of Sport. So we tried to tackle a novel, I would say, idea in this case, where we did a comparative analysis of school policies that were implemented in Slovenia. They were trying to tackle improvements in physical fitness. That is, they were trying to tackle disparities in physical fitness of children with varying weight that is dependent on the weight status. So just I was saying previously to Justin, I might have some technical difficulties, so let's see. So as you all know, trends are important, and we had a huge database. We had the data collected over 35 years. Some of the colleagues here would know that because they worked intimately with the data, collected it, processed it. Somebody as Boyan here in the chat, so also thanks to him. But we were concerned about differences in in variations, in variance. So not only the mean trends, although the goal of many of healthy lifestyle interventions is to enhance public health. We weren't sure if it was clear how these policies may widen or narrow those differences. It was definitely challenging to address this. We saw schools as those perfect settings where children would spend most of their time during the day, and some policies could be implemented. You will see later. We had several several policies. I see that this text is overlapping, so you might not see what's happening, so I'll skip this. We had groups of children that were attending schools without involvement in either of those interventions. We had children that were attending schools in participating in both interventions, those in the healthy schools and healthy lifestyles interventions exclusively. So we separated children based on sex due to differences at those ages. Children were also separated by age groups and were either overweight or obese. So they were all grouped as those with excess weight, and all other children were characterized as those living with normal weight. That is all concerning the analysis. So we hypothesized that the effectiveness of school-based lifestyle policies was smaller among those with overweight compared with those with normal weight. This is just something about the SLOFIT surveillance system implemented in Slovenia. So we used data collected between 2010 and 2019, and this is near census data. So approximately 95% of all children of school age was involved. These are some numbers. Number of children that we had, it was almost identically half and half boys and girls. So the tests that were used are here on your screen, and they are implemented in the SLOFIT surveillance system. So we use data on body composition, cardiorespiratory fitness, muscular fitness, and I can see now that skill-related fitness isn't properly written in the last box. But yeah, that is skill-related fitness. We tried to use several different approaches in terms of statistics that represented a whole other uh, uh, number of challenges. I can speak to that later if anybody wants to, but due to time constraints, I'll just skip to the results. So I already stated our primary research aims. You will have to excuse me because I have no visual results, but these were some of the results that we saw for groups of physical fitness tests. So this is also a lot of texts and numbers, and I will skip to the part where I state that across all domains, children with excess weight consistently exhibited poor average fitness levels, but that is on average. Notably, the gaps weren't static, so a general trend showed us that disparities were widening, particularly among boys that were only in the Healthy Schools network and those that weren't involved in any intervention. These are some examples for cardiorespiratory fitness and, for example, 60-meter dash and sit-ups. So changes in dispersion were smaller in magnitude compared to changes in central tendency, and those inequalities persisted over time by weight status. So we didn't see any reductions in variability-based disparities due to the implemented interventions. That is tied to some of the studies previously reported. School-based lifestyle interventions were shown as effective, but that is generally thought of on the mean side of things. So we would definitely need more research and more complex statistical approaches that would tackle problems related to variance. That is definitely also new to me, but I wanted to somehow address at least those two interventions that were implemented in Slovenia. So, although I am from Croatia and I'm not intimately aware of those, I didn't participate in those interventions. I have all the data and details about those. So definitely when we decide to publish this, more details will be there, probably as supplementary material. To wrap things up, I already stated, so we should ensure that physical fitness and physical activity policies implemented in schools definitely not only focus on general trends and trends in the mean, but also in the variance. So those between and within disparities should definitely narrow over time. But what is measured gets managed. And if we don't measure it, if we don't analyze it, we won't manage it. So that is the wrap up of my talk. I tried to state what to do, but this is only in general, no specific guidance here. Just my contact info here is if somebody tries to reach out, and that is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony, for that wonderful presentation and a nice overview of the amount of work that's involved when you're looking at those large epochs of data. Okay, in the interest of time, I guess we will continue on. And I see that I am the last one, so I will set up the presentation now. And it's my great pleasure to present some ideas for a cost action that the FitBack Network is interested in pursuing. Several people here are involved in this initiative, and I thank you very much for this. Basically, phase one of a project looking at establishing fitness surveillance in children European-wide was conducted between 2019, 2020, and 2022. This was an Erasmus Plus sports scholarship, and it was to create a network that was able to eventually predict future health trends by relating health risk to physical fitness status. But as Tony just mentioned at the end of his talk, there were very few studies or countries or regions that were systematically measuring childhood fitness across many, many years. So the FitBack Network was developed in collaboration with 10 European partners who already had proven, established, systematic physical fitness assessment monitoring systems in their regions. This was coordinated by the SlowFit team, Faculty of Sport, University of Ljubljana, and the principal investigator was Dr. Gregor Jurak. What happened? Mission accomplished. I remember last year we mentioned a few of these outcomes to the group, so I'm really happy to give an epilogue to what was established. We successfully launched the free online multilingual platform, FitBack, and we disseminated the results widely, including several flagship publications. This is a screenshot of the website where you can make reports, you can monitor fitness levels, you can see a fitness map of Europe, stories, and there's other resources available on this portal. One of the key flagship publications was in collaboration with many people on this call here, and they wanted to establish new and updated reference values that would be used as the back end to creating these fitness and health reports. And here you can see a screenshot of the web portal where you can search Europe-wide data for 20-meter shuttle run, standing long jump, hand grip, BMI, body mass index, and waist circumference. And you can show on the map different differences in this data between mean centile, percent of fit children, or unfit children. Some other outcomes and impacts, we were able to publish a 10-step approach for how people can design their own physical fitness monitoring program. So this is more of a ground-up approach, whether you're a very keen teacher or coach, a community leader, or at the national level as well. It can be implemented, and following the different steps, we're outlining in detail how one can establish more robust fitness testing. And then there were also works used to evaluate whether this web portal was indeed good for children, youth, practitioners, end users. And indeed, they found it was very insightful and not easy to use, but very knowledgeable, and people found it very informative. There was also a development of the online platform in terms of the health-related interpretation and surveillance. So what happens at the end if you develop reports? What kind of feedback can you give the children? Where along the spectrums do they fall? And this was also well communicated. So phase 2 of this project was underway over the last 2 years and is currently concluded. This is called Fitback for Literacy. And the team found that there was a bit of a hole in the literature regarding how monitoring physical fitness to develop physical literacy in children and adolescents was being used in schools. There was still a large negative connotation between measuring physical fitness in children, young children. And so this team and network wanted to make sure that when you're implementing fitness monitoring, you have the support of the Fitback platform. You can have it at the local level, schools, sports clubs, and the whole intention is to develop better overall physical literacy of children and adolescents. Of course, we know that there are different components to physical literacy, and the one that our team is most acutely involved in at this point is physical competence. Because we believe that if you have good physical fitness and fundamental motor skills, that will create a positive cycle, which will lead to more confidence, more motivation, and this will create a nice positive momentum to continue physical activity, physical fitness across the lifespan. So this project was focused on teaching and learning materials for PE teachers. And basically, how do we present fitness testing to children and adolescents so that it's not overly negative connotations or in a more positive way? And they wanted to create evaluation tools for physical literacy adjusted from the Canadian system. So they really wanted to improve by adding, translating, and providing these toolkits in different languages with the ultimate aim that you're wanting to track and evaluate, assess and plan, and then exercise and enjoy across the schooling periods. So now we're looking for sustainable growth in terms of this Fitback network. We need to enlarge the Fitback network, and to do this, we can do it from a top-down or bottom-up approach. You want to address policymakers and important stakeholders to establish physical fitness monitoring systems more widely. We want to implement physical fitness monitoring with local support of Fitback in terms of schools, sports clubs. It doesn't have to be at a national level, at least to start. So now we are entering the next phase and the purpose of this talk. I have only 2 more slides to go, so we'll be sure to end on time. But this is an ongoing project. We are seeking to apply for funding through a cost action. So this is very different than the Erasmus Plus or other funding avenues here in Europe. The cost action is a European cooperation in science and technology, and it's all about building framework networks and comprehensive, really well-established knowledge in a given area. So in this way, we would like to go beyond state-of-the-art to build a research framework that can assess some of the challenges we're facing now, namely the fitness assessment, monitoring and surveillance, physical and health literacy, 24-hour movement behavior, co-participation with children themselves, of course, generative AI models and One Health approaches, behavior will change, and we need to more overtly address data privacy and security issues. So what is a cost action proposal? It's very important that any participating members have full anonymity. So your proposal is not graded on like the PI's track record or the people involved per se. So there must be no mention of any acronyms or prior research, which is quite challenging in these types of write-ups. The network is assessed on its diversity, so the age, gender, region, career stage, and discipline of the different people involved. And it does not support original research per se. So it's not for these very large ongoing studies. It's more for organizing meetings, short-term scientific missions, training schools, communication, virtual network tools. It's basically an avenue that where people can consolidate knowledge and make sure everything is moving in a harmonized fashion. This deadline we're aiming for is October 21st. So we are currently confirming network confirmations, and the COST portal formal invitations will go out shortly. We're completing the technical annex and finalizing different working group foci based on the preliminary feedback from key actors. So I'd like to thank Faculty of Sport and all of the key players on our FitBack team. We are members of Active Healthy Kids Global Alliance in terms of their partnerships, and funding for these ongoing projects was given by the Slovenian Research and Innovation Agency and the European Union. Okay, we're well on time. So I'll just check the agenda here, and it looks like we skip immediately to Justin Lang for phase 2 of our group brainstorming on the international fitness and surveillance and monitoring. So without a minute to lose, we're just going to plug right through and go to Justin, please.
Hello, everyone. All right, so I have a bit of a rhetorical question for the group. And my question is it time for the Global Fitness Survey? And for me, I do strongly believe that it is the right time to launch a Global Fitness Survey. And I think that there's a few reasons for it. I think that our group, we've been generating a lot of momentum over the past 4 years with many large, important scientific publications that our collective group has contributed over the past few years. These meetings in particular, we've seen our attendance grow quite a bit since 2023. So that really demonstrates that there is a strong global interest in fitness right now across the world. So that I truly believe that we are collectively developing global momentum in child and youth fitness monitoring and surveillance. And this is something that I'm very proud of to see, and I hope that we can continue with this momentum. So today, here's kind of a snapshot of attendees in the meeting where they're located. And it's kind of a rough snapshot. But this really shows that we have pretty good global coverage in this meeting from right across the world. And so this is I guess a few data points from the survey that I circulated, and I wanted to thank all of you for taking the time to complete that. So in total, we had 90 responses. And one of the questions was, are you currently leading, planning, or contributing to data collection using some or all of the measures identified in YFit? And I was amazed to see that over 50% of the respondents are currently or have collected YFit data. To me, this is more than I had anticipated, and I was quite happy to see this large number. And just going through, so another question that I had asked was that if yes, were you willing to share some of your experiences? So I grabbed a few excerpts of responses from the group, and I just wanted to kind of highlight the areas where YFit data are being collected. And so we have Germany, Switzerland, across Europe, Argentina, Lithuania, Japan, Uruguay, Slovenia, Ecuador, Brazil, Chile, Czechia. So I'm sure we're all aware of all these countries collecting data, and there are many more that aren't highlighted in these excerpts. So the big question for the group then is, why don't we work together to collect these data? We already are collecting them in some capacity, and if we can coordinate some sort of standardized data collection and pooling of results, it could provide us with a nice snapshot of the international fitness levels of youth. I think that this would be a very powerful data and something of great interest to the world, kind of answering the question, who have the fittest children, or what countries have the fittest children in the world. I think this is something that is of great interest to many people. So I have kind of a big proposal idea that I wanted to share with you today, and this is to launch a global fitness survey. And so I'm going to walk you through a very rough proposal idea for you to consider, with the caveat that this is underdeveloped and there's still opportunities to expand on it and add your ideas. And this is something that I'm hoping that at the end of the meeting, we could kind of brainstorm and build this out a bit further. But so the first thing is, what is it? So this is a large international, I'm going to call it a pilot project, to serve as evidence for future grant and funding application. So I'm finding that funding bodies in Canada, at least, I don't know if it's like that in your respective countries, but many funding bodies are asking for pilot project data to demonstrate the feasibility or worthwhile of a concept to fund and expand in the future. So I think this could really serve as that data, that pilot data that funding bodies could look at to see whether or not we have a feasible project. So where can data be collected? And my thought is that it could be collected anywhere. So anyone who would be interested in participating in this pilot project and have kind of the time, the capacity, the resources, the know-how to collect these data, they'd be fully welcome to join. But one thing to mention is that we don't have any funding, so it would be kind of something for your group to do with your existing resources, which I know it's a lot to ask, but without funding, it's tough to get these sorts of projects going. And as I mentioned, it's good to have data to show to funding bodies and hopefully secure funding in the future. So when will data be collected? And I propose kind of within this next calendar year or school year. But I realize that that's kind of a short turnaround time, and we'd be open to extend it longer if that's something that's needed, especially for going through ethics and all, and school board ethics and all that. That takes time. So maybe it'd be more realistic to extend it to 2027, but just to kind of draw a line in the sand, that's what it would be nice to have it all collected by August 2026. And so why should you participate? And this is really something that only you could answer, but I have a few kind of ideas to add to why you should participate. And I think it could really help generate international recognition, not only for this group, but maybe for yourself as a researcher or your institution or your lab. And this is something that Professor Marc Tremblay will expand on later on in his presentation. The other thing is that everyone who participates in this project and collects data will be invited to participate in a peer-reviewed paper. So it would be one more paper to add. And I think that if we were to get enough people together to pool data, I think it could be a fairly impactful paper. So hopefully something that could help move the field a little bit further. And I think it would be a good experience for your students and your labs and people who would be involved in data collection to be contributing to a larger international project. Moving on, so how can you participate? So I think first thing would be to contact me and let me know that you're interested in being involved, because I would want to make sure that we have enough people interested before launching the project. It'd be a shame to, launch it and only have 3 sites participate, and that, in my opinion, wouldn't be worthwhile. I think we would need, 20, 25 to make it a real kind of global coverage. And so once we feel like we have enough, then we could start kind of planning emails and discussions as a group. We'll use the YFIT protocol, and Professor Ortega will talk about this next. And we're not looking for very much data. So we're talking about very small, feasible samples of a total of 50 participants. We've chosen a narrow age range, so 9 to 11, to be able to make strong comparisons between countries. And we're also looking for balanced samples, so 25 boys, 25 girls, if possible. And so I think if we're able to hit 50 per site, I think that would be great. If we can't, I mean, it's not the end of the world if we have 30 or 40. And it would be fantastic if we can collect more than that per site. So the more, the better. But that's kind of a target for people to think about. And the other thing is we would only be sharing aggregate data. So we won't do raw data, because there'd be complications with institutional data sharing agreements. So I think if we stuck to sharing aggregate data, this kind of overcomes that, and we would still be able to pool and compare data using aggregate data. And so we would hope to, as I mentioned before, have enough data to share during the same meeting next year. And we could do kind of a presentation to show the data we've collected, and hopefully that would lead to the beginning of a manuscript. So I know that this is a lot, and it sounds like a very big project, and there's certainly a chance that we come together to advance this project, and it ends up looking a little bit like this. Okay. But I know that we are smart, capable individuals who are dedicated and organized, and if we put our heads together, I'm very certain that we'll end up looking something like this, running right past our goal lines. All right. Okay, so thank you, and just to kind of, I know everyone has seen the agenda, but the next 3 presentations are organized around this idea of a global fitness survey. So we're going to get into it a little bit more. So Dr. Ortega will kind of explain the YFIT battery, its development and importance. And then Moreau Santander, he just finished collecting a lot of data in Argentina using YFIT and other measures. So he's going to discuss a little bit about his experiences and some challenges that he faced. And then we'll finish off with Professor Marc Tremblay, who, as you know, has a wealth of experience in these types of global research projects in physical activity and fitness. And so he's going to offer a few of his examples, challenges, and opportunities. And we'll finish off with a group discussion. And we're going to launch a whiteboard. So people will be able to post ideas under a few themes that we've pre-populated the whiteboard with. And that will be a good time to kind of expand on this idea to see if it's something that the group feels it's feasible, if there's other things that we'll need to consider, or so on and so forth. So without further ado, I will introduce Dr. Fran Ortega. Please take it away, and I'll stop sharing.
Hello, thank you. And Hello, everybody. I will try to share my screen. Okay, can you see the screen? Hear me correctly? Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you very much, Justin and Sonda, for organizing this meeting. It's my pleasure to talk about the YFIT. It's actually one collaborative project that came from these annual meetings. Partially was presented some years ago, was conducted. I want to talk about it. And I will try to address this question, which fitness test should be used and why. And this was actually a question we came across quite a few years ago. So it could be a kind of small summary of a long journey in a few minutes. So this was the problem. We were aware that there were different fitness batteries in Europe and in different continents, and each of the batteries had different tests included. As an example, if we want to measure cardiorespiratory fitness, that we know is very health related, very important, we have more than 15 different tests. So which one is better and why? That was a question was not fully well addressed in the literature when we started to think about it. So at that time, the European Commission funded the Alpha project, and the Alpha project was funded with €1 million to try to standardize which instruments should be used to evaluate physical activity and fitness in a standardized way, harmonized way across different countries. And we, at that time, this is Michael Sjöström, was at Karolinska Institute. He was the coordinator of the Alpha project. And Manuel Castillo is this other person here. He was the coordinator in Granada of the fitness in youth part. Jonathan, my colleague and co-director of the group in Granada, and I, Fran, some years ago, we were doing our postdoc at Karolinska Institute, and we were there for a bridge between the Granada and the Karolinska partners in this project. And together with many other colleagues, we started to work on this long process. Basically, we wanted to address through systematic reviews and narrative reviews some research question. Basically, which tests out of those available for children and adolescents were more reliable on a test-retest basis? Which tests have a higher validity, criterion validity? Which tests were more related with future health? And for evaluating cardiorespiratory fitness, muscular fitness, motor fitness, body composition. And we identify a number of gaps in the literature. We try to address them by doing some methodological studies. And we have an international expert group with really well-known people, fathers of the Eurofit battery and some of the American batteries and so on, that participated all through the process in this project with us. So this was all working, a lot of work, there were a lot of people during some years, end up in about number of, I think, 20 different papers between systematic reviews and methodological studies that they are the foundation of the Alpha Fitness battery that eventually end up in this simple slide. So this is the high priority, the most important tests that have this evidence base behind and tell us that if we want to evaluate cardiorespiratory fitness, all these methodological papers and systematic review were pointing to one test, that is the 20 meters run test. For evaluating muscular fitness, it was hang grip strength and standing broad jump. For body composition was weight and height, typically to estimate BMI and weight status and waist circumference. And this was all summarized, all this paper, all this project into one paper, published in 2010, 2011. It was this Alpha paper summary. And then we noted that 1 year later, it was a separate, completely separate group from the Institute of Medicine in the United States, led by Russell Pate and colleagues, that did a similar systematic review process with similar research question on which tests would be used for surveillance, and also on educational context or in the schools where most of fitness testing is taking place in the large surveys. So they happily came up to the same conclusion, exactly same conclusion that the Alpha project came. And therefore we had like a proposal, evidence-based proposal of which fitness test could be used. And this is more than a decade ago. And then we decided to do one step further. And was to say, okay, we have already reviewed the evidence, proposal fitness tests, but are these tests feasible? Are these tests acceptable? And do people from different parts of the world agree or disagree that this test should be used for fitness surveillance and monitoring. So we established this YFIT, Youth Fitness International Test Consensus Delphi project. And basically, as I say, we did a proposal based on these two evidence source projects, so the Alpha project and the Institute of Medicine project. We did the proposal based on the same test that was suggested in these two projects: weight and height, 20 meters and run test, hang grip, standing long jump. We only skipped the waist circumference because in the Institute of Medicine project was argued that when this measurement was done at the schools, it needed some logistically was a little bit more complicated due to privacy, so cultural differences, religious, and so on. That was not so easy to raise the t-shirt or measure over the t-shirt and so on. So basically, waist circumference was dropped from the proposal for the YFIT battery to try to make it inclusive, diverse, and more visible in different parts of the world. But otherwise, these are the 5 core measurements that were proposed to a group of experts to ask whether they agree or not that these tests were the best option we have to evaluate the fitness for surveillance and monitoring. And the selection of experts was done based on these people involved in these fitness annual meetings, people in a search we did on ScienceVal, on Expertscape, in the topic of fitness, on research networks. So we try to pick people who has had experience in fitness testing, who has some research background. We publish in at least some few papers, and basically to try to represent as many regions of the world as possible, because one of these international consensus is only good when you have enough representation from people from different parts of the world. So we tried to do that effort, and we reached 216 people and designed our Delphi survey, piloted with a small group of people from different countries and different gender. And eventually we gather people from different parts or continents, as you can see in this map, in this picture. And in this other picture, you can see the proportion of people from men, women, and also the proportion from different regions in the world that they are with different colors in the inner cycle. So on the left, you can see those who were invited, 216. And on the right, you see there's 169 people who responded to the survey. We were really happy with a 78% response rate, much higher than normally on online surveys. And not only with the high percentage response, but also that the proportion of people invited and people responding was kept. As you can see that the colors of the figure in the left and right are the same. So there's been therefore representative, the sampling from those targeted originally. Okay, so we got a good first phase, and then in this figure you can see this is for the total sample is 169. On the gray bar we have whether they agree that this proposed test, 20 meters at and run, hang grip, standing long jump, are the best test for monitoring and surveillance. So the gray bar means the percentage of people that agree with that, and the target was 80%, the red line, and you can see that it clearly was exceed for all the different measurements. With the standing long jump, had a 98%, only 2% didn't agree fully with that. So basically, it was really a worldwide consensus that these measurements are good to be used in different parts of the world. And the yellow was a really important part also, because if we want some harmonization, standardization of the measurement, it needs to be measured with the same protocols. So we actually asked, and you can see also that the overall agreement was high, was over 80% in the first round of our Delphi study. So we were happy on this first result. We also split it by gender, and you can see that everything is across over the bar of 80% as well. And we also did for the different regions of the world. And if you look at the gray bar, you can see that in all the regions, Africa, Asia, Australia, Oceania, Europe, North America, South America, the gray bars go across the target 80% agreement. So that's good. And the yellow bar, you can see a few that they go below, but actually that was part of how the survey was designed, because if you wanted to propose any modification on the protocols proposed, you had to say no and then propose, you had the option to propose changes. And that was actually something we were happy, and we took it very positively because we started from the protocols that were provided in the Alpha battery as a starting point, and then we tried to refine them with the comments that were provided by these experts from different parts of the world. So we end up with in this manuscript publishing a new, refined, updated protocols that, let's say, has gone through a consensus process, that we are not aware that the similar process on protocols in fitness testing has been done anywhere else before. So we were happy. Main findings is that now we have 5 core measurements that they are evidence-based and consensus agreed to be that could be used for monitoring and surveillance. And also we had the protocols that is published in the Wi-Fi paper. We don't go into detail, but you can see all the detail for each of the tests or how a test should be done to be done in an harmonized way on an international context. And this link very closely to what Justin was just proposing, that if we want to do any international effort, now we have an instrument and protocols that we could use. Okay, part T, we were really happy, but as usually there is always a but. And but in this case, and somebody has mentioned today in this meeting, is that actually the hand grip is a good measurement. It's the only measurement that can be done for the age of 3 years in preschooler to 100 years, all across the different ages, cultures, circumstances, and contexts, with the same protocol, same characteristics, and they are valid and reliable. There is no other test, I think, that I'm aware that can be applied for absolutely everybody. And it's the most related to mortality, stronger outcomes when it comes to muscular strength measurement. But you need this, you need the dynamometers, and they're expensive. JAMR has been sometimes considered like gold standard dynamometer, but yeah, the digital costs about $600, $560 the analog. This is a price I got updated this week from one of our providers. I just say, send me from the same provider the prices for different dynamometers, include the delivery cost, taxes, and everything. So it might differ in your country, and you can buy maybe a bit cheaper, a bit more expensive. Then we found this TKK dynamometers, and we have used in our group for many years, and they were a bit cheaper. So instead of 600, the digital costs 500. So we save $500 there, and the analogic is $240 cheaper. But we don't know if the validity or reliability was similar or not than the others. Therefore, already more than 15 years ago, basically, Vanessa España was one of our PhD students at that time. Now is an associate professor in Cádiz. She led the study comparing. We created a model, simple model, but it was good. Calibrated weights, calibrated in high precision, Seca scales. If we put 20 kilos here, ideally, the dynamometer should measure 20 kilos. So we put different weights and different dynamometers, and we were able to test retest reliability as well as validity compared to these known or calibrated weights. And here we compared the JAMR with the TKK. So this is a blunt almond that shows the difference between the measure of the dynamometer versus the calibrated or the gold standard weight, let's say. So if the difference is 0, means that both methods agree. If it is minus, as it is this case, the center line reflects the mean of the differences across different weights, from lighter weight to higher weight. That would be weaker people, stronger people, let's say. And then you can see that there is a mean systematic error of -2. So in theory, according to this study, was underestimation of 2 kilos when measuring with the JAMR hand grip compared to these calibrated weights. And the confidence interval was about 2 kilos up and down. So also has this plus less 2 kilos random error. If we look at TKK, you can see that it's much closer the center bar to 0. So it was only about 0.5 kilos of systematic error. So it was better. And the confidence interval were narrower as well. So this is a good, less systematic error and less random error, comparing one a little bit cheaper than a little bit expensive. But still, they were not that cheap. So years later, with Cristina Cadenas, former PhD student from our group, now associate professor in Granada, we published another study focusing on different models of TKK. In particular, we look at the digital version and the analog version. If you remember about the prices, this was the cheapest out of the 4 models I presented. So this is about $360. instead of 600 that can cost others. And in addition, has an advantage that measures from 0 to 100, while this has a minimum of 5. If you are, for instance, measuring very weak people, old people, or preschoolers, this is nice that they can be measured already from very, very little hand grip strength. So that was good. That was cheaper, and it has a better, wider range. Then the conclusion, I'm not showing the Bland-Altman method, but it was exactly the same as good one or the other. So if they are similar valid and reliable, then we'd rather take the cheaper and with a wider range. Good. But still, all of these are relatively expensive. So we came across the low-cost hand grip dynamometer. This was a model we heard about it recently. It's called Camry. It's produced in Hong Kong, and it costs less than $60. You can find it in Amazon even by less. I just checked it, and it's therefore 10 times cheaper than the others. But the question is, first, I don't have any conflict of interest. I'm 100% academic, not related with any dynamometer company. That's important for the credibility of the results. And we just published 2 days ago one study. This was led by my PhD student, Lucia Sanchez, that we look at this Camry, also using the same model of calibrated weights. And we compare also with TKK that has been used already before compared to JAMA, as you just saw. Okay, what are the results? We saw the TKK, it was an underestimation, overestimation of 1 kilo, what is not bad error, but it was also a little bit of tendency that the higher is the weight, the higher is the underestimation. So we were not so happy about that. And the question is how well measured the hand grip, the cheap, low-cost hand grip. And you can see that the mean systematic error is really low, it's barely 0. So it means perfect agreement with the calibrated weights and no tendency of changing the error as increase the magnitude of the weight. So really good. The random errors are very small. It's about 0.5 kilos. So the result was optimal with a new bought Camry. But somebody might think this is cheap. Maybe after a year of use, it doesn't work anymore. So we got from our colleagues, Thomas, I think is connected today here. We got an old Camry dynamometer that was used in Hungary maybe thousands of times for 5 years, and we repeat the test. So this is with the old Camry, no calibration done, many uses, years of use, and you can see that the results are identical. So new, old, doesn't need calibration, and it costs 1/10 than the other. So we were really happy to say that it's an excellent validity, reliability, as good as other, if not better, more expensive dynamometers. So take-home messages, we have now evidence-based international consensus. We know which tests and protocol can be used. They are valid, reliable, health-related, feasible, and safe. It's called YFIT. We had these core measurements, and now we are kind of overcoming, making a little bit cheaper the fitness testing of the Wi-Fi battery, because at least there is a low-cost dynamometer. Might be others, but we have tested this one and show excellent validity and reliability. So thank you very much. Acknowledgement to our group in Granada, on international collaborators, and thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ortega. We're going to move immediately to our next speaker so we can try to regain some time and find out what it's like collecting YFIT data in the field. So may I ask Dr. Santanda to take the floor, please?
Hello. The English is not my language. Sorry for my English. Well,
Good, we see your presentation.
you can see?
Yes, this looks perfect.
Thank you. My name is Mauro Santander. I'm a director of Observatory of Sport, Physical Activity and Culture in the Neuquén province in Argentina. My English is not very good. If you have a question, please by mail. To improve my fluency, I will refer to the text as I speak. I will talking about experience in collecting in Young Fitness International test in Neuquén, Argentina. First, the last year in this forum, I'm talking about the PCF, our fitness assessment plan for health. Today, I briefly share out experience communicating the result and the study we are carrying out at the Observatory of Sport, Physical Activity and Culture. Our first study we launched in 2015. Over 4,400 children and adolescents between 10 and 18 years in Neuquén. And the second study we launched it in 2023-2024, over 11,000 children and adolescents in Neuquén after a pandemic, after COVID-19. This ongoing study updates previous data and compare fitness before and after COVID-19. In Argentina, school went 2 years without physical education, and we believe it it's was many important to investigate the fitness, the physical fitness in children and adolescents after COVID-19. When the two plan ended, and we don't want the result of the data to not be used the community, and then to be used we use 5 communication strategies. First, the communication strategies individualized institutional communication, personalized reports to a school. After each intervention in educational institution, personalized reports were prepared with the result obtained by the assessed student. When the plan ended, the second communication strategy, physical fitness assessment manual we created with Neuquén tables, and we created 2 an app, assessment app to the physical education teacher. In parallel, communication training session were conducted for the educational teacher. Communication with political authorities. Specific technical reports were prepared for authorities from the Ministry of Sport and government stakeholder and the other stakeholder. This document includes disaggregated analysis by age, sex, and region. Our plan and the 2 study become now, and in effect, these authorities during the current political administration, it was used a foundation giving rise to the program as near the school, cerca de la escuela in Spanish language. Near the school, it's a program for the promotion of sport. Fourth, scientific publication in Archivos Argentinos de Pediatría. The first study when they applied Alpha Battery, were published in the National Journal Archivos Argentinos de Pediatría. The second study, when applied the Young Fitness International Test in 2023-2024, after pandemic, being prepared for publications in scientific journals. And the last communication strategy, we participate in social media, TV, radio, local press, and another social media national. This communication strategy helped make to the first study and the second study results now, and help it to create our observatory. Today, this is our team, two physical education teachers and one sociology is our team in Neuquén province. Today, in a new study, our observatory is conducting a study aimed at analyzing accessibility to sport and physical activity in the Neuquén province. This study aims not only to understand the evolution of different disciplines, but also the territorial distribution of the sport practice, identifying the particularities of each region. Together, the first study, the second study, communication strategy, and the current study provide a comprehensive framework for linking health and physical fitness diagnosis with the analysis of access opportunities and barriers, given the development of public sport policies with the perspective of equity and human development. Sorry for my English. Thank you for the thank you. This is more important to us. Stay here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Santander. It was wonderful to hear your experiences from Argentina, placing this really important initiative and how you were able to communicate it through different channels. Thank you very much. Our last speaker of the day for this session on the group brainstorming is Dr. Mark Tremblay from Canada. He has some experiences in international physical activity research that he would like to share with our group. Thank you. Just a reminder to please mute the mics across the board. Is
that coming up? All good? Okay. Well, good day, everyone. Thanks for a great session. This is going to be just a bit of an experience dump for us as we think about the proposal of doing an international fitness survey, something that I'm very keen on, have been keen on for a long time. As some of you know, in the early to mid 1990s, Kevin Norton and I were having this same discussion. There was a need then. It would have been great had it been done then, and now we'd be able to have 30 or 40 years of tracking to do this. But nevertheless, such an effort, if done robustly, has a number of challenges to it. So what I'm going to share with you is not a systematic search of anything, but a reflection of my experience leading a number of different international projects with many different countries, and so some of which are here. And so I'm just drawing on those experiences to try and share some of the challenges, but the rewards that we could have by doing something. So first, why should we even do global research? Well, because there's potential for high impact. You know, when we do things as we typically do, because it's pragmatic, we do things on pretty small samples, pretty small geographic areas with pretty small generalizability. You know, for things like what we're talking about here, we want much more of a macro level. And so that's why we do this stuff. So we can answer questions that aren't possible to answer from within country data. And it helps us also to understand higher order variation. There's certainly a trend, an important trend, I think, for our field, and I would just say physical fitness, physical activity broadly. Finally, we seem to have made the connection that we need to connect with much bigger things in the world, sustainable development goals, bigger issues, which our interests can connect to, and I think we need to do that. But to do that, we need to understand things in higher order. So we need to be hyperopic, not myopic. There's tremendous opportunity when you do global research for natural experiments. When you're dealing with many different jurisdictions, some of them will have policy changes, some of them will have crises, some of them will have major differences, and we can explore that through natural experiments. As Fran mentioned with the YFIT, all kinds of efforts to harmonize and test the different protocols we use. Do they work around the world? The example about taking out waist circumference is a good example that, you know, while it's fine here in Canada, in some cultures, it's just not going to work. We're going to miss the entire female population. So it becomes not good. We do global research to network, to have fun, to build capacity, to travel, see the world, all kinds of great things. And there are lots of opportunities with this. I'll go through these very quickly. We can talk about them later if we want, otherwise I'll be way too long. But it addresses data gaps. We can assess the validity and reliability of our instruments across different studies. Those of you that have been involved in the Sunrise study early on, you know, we found that some of the things that we just assumed would be our fine motor skill tests are completely irrelevant in many countries in the world. And so you don't know that until you do that. How to source, you know, this is something we don't think about, but as we try and connect to much larger issues in the world, we need to understand the sources of influence beyond the individual level, which we measure. But, you know, what is the influence of family, peers, school, community, government, other layers of the onion that are important. We can exploit and assess cross-fertilization of capacity building opportunities through global research, something that we're all very keen on. We can exploit natural experiment opportunities. We can, there are many, I mean, there's so many papers that can be done and comparisons that can be done, which would be very informative to policy changes and implementations across countries. We can explore the mitigating effects of outdoor time and/or 24-hour movement behavior someone raised earlier on fitness and health indicators. Particularly relevant, not mentioned here, but are the mediating effects or the relationships with screen time, which is completely dominating the time of our youth today. How much are these things connected? How do they relate? Opportunities to explore linkages with geopolitical variation, climate change, bigger issues that big funding agencies are interested in. They're not interested in our issue, but if we can connect to them, there might be a link there. But there are lots of challenges with doing this. And so don't, you know, we can't be naive going into this, and I'll just rifle through these. Finances being the obvious one, and Justin mentioned this, you know, we don't have any funding for this. We never have any funding for this. In the early 1990s, when Kevin and I started this discussion, there was no funding for this. No one's interested in this, despite the very, very powerful relationship between fitness and health indicators. Way bigger, way stronger than physical activity and sedentary behavior, at least based on the information that we have. No one funds this though. There needs to be some sort of leadership structure. So right there, often this breaks down, and we can talk about what that might look like. The availability of data, using existing data, the possibilities, but with that becomes different collaboration agreements, data transfer agreements. These differ between countries, between jurisdictions, all kinds of challenges. Who owns the data at the end? Who has access to data? Data management, transferring funds. If someone were lucky enough to get some funds for a global research thing, the ability to transfer funds around the world takes almost all the energy and funds that you have available just in order to do it, unfortunately. Same with sharing of equipment, if that needs to be done. You know, we just talked and heard from Fran about dynamometers and cheap ones, but even transferring those between sites costs way more than actually purchasing them. There's different JEDI issues, JEDI being justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion issues, which vary around the world. So whatever our frame of reference is within the country that we're in, it's not the same elsewhere in the world. And so you can't assume that we can do this to different, in different settings to different people. There's research ethics differences that vary around the world. Some places it's easy to do this stuff, some it's almost impossible. We've got pragmatic things like time zone differences, language differences, seasonal differences. Some countries don't have seasonal differences, others have substantial ones. And that matters in terms of how you collect data, when you collect data. There's legal issues, facility availability, which in Canada, we would just assume you can do these in a gym. Well, all of my research in East Africa, there are no gyms. And so you have to do this outside. Then you have to verify that the 20-meter shuttle run works outside compared to inside and so on. How, if you start a project like this, and we'll have to deal with this now, a bunch of you are going to have answered Justin already and said, oh, I really want to be involved in this. And let's say there's 40 countries initially. But then a year from now, a few other countries want to come in. What's that process like? What about the central administration costs? Someone needs to coordinate all of this. So you're naive to think this isn't going to take a ton of energy and a ton of resources. Where's that going to come from? Who's going to do it? What's the best spot to do that in? There's temporal changes in methods and processes. And so do you stick to the original protocol, even though it's shown that a better protocol exists now? That's a challenge that's forever there. And then there are unforeseen circumstances, which we've all experienced in the last 5 years: pandemics, armed conflicts, severe weather, economic crises, strikes, research incidents, and so on. These will happen. How are we going to deal with them? How do we deal with them in a similar fashion across jurisdictions? We've got initial jurisdiction site selection and stratification. A question's already up, I think, in the chat there about if we're only doing 50 kids, that's like 2 classrooms. It's going to be so biased to be meaningless. So how do we start off with that? What about cultural sensitivities around sex and gender? Some places you cannot even refer to gender, others you must. In Canada, we have about 50 different gender stratifications. In other countries, you can't do that. Even the recording of dates is problematic. It's not universal that you go day, month, year, month, day, year. And so using even that coding is complicated as heck around the world. Language and literacy, staff training, which needs to be translated and done in a systematic way, which relates to quality assurance and quality control. I mentioned the facility availability, indoors versus outdoors, seasonal differences in that for weather, safety, theft. We're dealing with, again, hand grip dynamometers, those that work with accelerometers. These are in parts of the world, these are things that are sought after and sold, even though they have no value. So something just to think about. Inevitably, we get to the point of what do we call the survey? What's the logo? What's the website? What's the acronym and so on? And while that's fun, it takes some time and energy to do. To go into this without any sort of thinking about where we're going would be, I think, unfortunate. There should be an analysis plan. We should have some sort of beacon that we're aiming towards, a publication plan in the short term and the longer term. This takes time and energy and resources. And we want to catalog our productivity as we go along as well. And that brings us to authorship issues. There's 75 people on this call. Everyone wants to be an author on everything. How do we adhere to editorial principles and so on? And this is a huge challenge around the world. Thank you very much for your attention. I'd be happy to answer any questions as we, I think, drift into the brainstorming session. Thanks, Shonda.
Thank you very much. It got heavier and heavier as we went along, but there were many issues and very valuable insights there. So thank you very much. I think what I'll do is officially close our session and stop the recording, because we will do a brainstorming session on a whiteboard now. And just in case of technical issues or whatnot, I'd like to have a clean break with our session. So I'd just like to thank everyone, all the speakers, Justin Lang for the like administration and ideas. And so I'll stop the recording now, and then we will move on to the whiteboard phase and the brainstorming phase of this project.